Freljordian welcome.
Yes, a true Freljordian welcome indeed. Welcome back to Voices of the Old Ones, episode 17. I'm Jankie, and I'm joined by my co-host Gomez.
Hello.
And we have another special guest. People keep on agreeing to come on!
I know, right?
Scarzig, welcome.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Glad to be here.
I trust that you're doing well.
I am doing fantastic. I just got back from vacation, so I'm super relaxed and ready to dive back into this meta that we're in the middle of.
Yeah, we have some strong opinions on this matter, but I'm sure we'll get to that. How about we start? Well, we have spoken in the past on live stream. We had a little interview back and forth in the past, but that never ended up making its way to anywhere like YouTube or like anywhere where it was preserved forever. So this is a chance for people to watch back and see. There's going to be a couple. We're going to need to. What the fuck am I saying? Like,
I don't know what the hell you're saying.
So yes, I get. You just have to fill the room for the lore. Back when you did your charity stream a long time ago, I came on as a guest, and it was a limited edition Jankie and Scarzig interview type deal. So
this is
now
why
we
you're
kinda
the
get a
caster
chance to...
and I'm not. Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to say. So, how about you start us off by how exactly did you come across card games or like gaming in general? What's your history with games?
So when it comes to games, I had, OG, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis back when I was a wee thing. And I got into card games with Yu-Gi-Oh! I collected Pokemon cards, but never played it. It was just the hot thing at the time. But when it came to like sitting down, playing a game, I got into Yu-Gi-Oh! And eventually fell out of that. But I got back into digital card games with Might and Magic Duel of Champions. Actually, that's a game that was. It came out right before Hearthstone, so it was a very cool game. It had a lot of fun systems, but it was still relying on like kind of a. It was viewed at the time as a very scummy like monetization model that was more based around like paper games before Hearthstone kind of came around and I think shifted the paradigm to be more of a cosmetic focused and mobile gamer style like monetization. So Might and Magic Duel of Champions, I moved on from that and picked up Duelist, one of the internet's best kept secrets, I think. Everybody who played the game really enjoyed it, but it just was one of those games that never caught on. They didn't really have an advertising budget. And there was a fantastic video on YouTube that kind of went over the entire like lifespan of the game, like its rise and fall. So big shout out to Duelist. Rest in peace to that game. And I came to Runeterra after Artifact. I played a little bit of Artifact as well as one of those guys. Still, I think that the Artifact was pretty solid. It had some problems, and there's a ton of analysis about, what went wrong with that game as well. And everybody, I think, has their own thoughts and opinions. And now here I am with Runeterra, the next big thing on the scene. And you'll notice I completely missed the boat on Hearthstone. This is a pretty funny story. When Hearthstone came out, I was like, I guess I'll give this new card game a shot and see what all the fuss is about. And there was some kind of weird error with like my Blizzard account and my email address so I couldn't download and play the game. And so I was just kind of like, whatever. And then I just never ended up getting the Hearthstone bug.
So literally, it's just because you couldn't do the email feel like, yeah, I'm
I know. I just wasn't asked enough.
Fair play.
Well, you saved out on a lot of money, at least.
Right, dodged a bullet there.
I mean, yeah, definitely. Like Hearthstone, ended up sinking so much money out of me. I think Jankie as well. It ended up taking so much money.
I also find it pretty funny that we've had like 5 or so people on the show who started with Yu-Gi-Oh and didn't know how to play Yu-Gi-Oh. Like I don't think anyone has come on and said, I started off by playing Yu-Gi-Oh! It was always, I owned the cards and they looked cool.
Yeah, that's how it was for me with Pokemon, where I just had the cards and I didn't know how to play the game. And with Yu-Gi-Oh! I remember, like, the first handful of cards came out before like the starter decks did. And so you were just kind of playing along with whatever the few episodes of the show you watched were.
Yeah.
Oh, so you actually were playing when the show stuff was actually like somewhat legal in terms of. So were you in the era?
We were just
where
making
modern-
stuff up, and like even when we got the rule book, a friend of mine, we bought like the Kaiba and the Yugi starter decks. Like we were
Oh.
still not even like playing the game right because it's too many rules, and I was small.
So did you actually get to play Pot of Greed? I
Oh,
played Pot
yeah.
of Greed.
Yeah,
You know
I
what
was
that
playing.
does.
Yeah, I was playing back in the early days before and after they did like the original ban list for the game. That was pretty fun.
Oh, I mean that's devastating. But
And if I remember correctly from the last time we chatted, you ended up being like a big part of the duelist community, didn't you? Like they
Oh.
made cards in your image.
Yes, that's right. Like the logo that I use, the Feather Knight logo, we converted that into a unit in the game, and it is really cool because I'm super proud of this. Because it has the ability where it comes into play as it was a 3-mana 1/3, and in Duelist and most any other card game, you imagine that stat line for mana cost is very weak, and it had the ability that if it was able to kill something and survive that combat, it would transform and level up. So, and then have a bonus effect that gave you an AoE buff to the rest of your units in play.
oh,
And
nice.
so there's a little bit of that like Runeterra DNA where you play like a weaker unit that flips and becomes like a stronger one, and having that design carry forward into the next game I played after Duelist was like really exciting.
I don't know why, but you just reminded me, talking just slightly a bit of Hearthstone. For some reason, that reminded me of Angry Chicken. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah.
I
It's
don't know why.
it's that kind of card. They had another card in Faria that did a similar thing. It was called like the Unlikely Hero or something. Like just a small unit that if it's able to kill something with a little bit of help from buffs and whatnot and some other shenanigans, you can make it work. And Scarzig, the unit at the time was like I had designed it to be sort of like a meme card where it wasn't going to be like very mainstream. It was something just sort of fun to kind of build around and see what you can do. But there was because of, just card games, you can't anticipate everything. And there ended up being like one Scarzig deck that was like the meta killer where it was kind of just good-ish against most other things, but it had like a really strong matchup against the best deck at the time. So it was
Nice.
like this silver bullet like deck that you could run on the ladder. It was really hilarious.
I do not think there could be a higher honor in any card game than getting a card made in your image and then taking on the meta.
It was a lot of fun. The developers were great, helping me design the card. When, as players, I think when we discuss things like that, we mostly talk about balance changes, right? Things that are already in the game, tweaking numbers, maybe tweaking abilities here and there. But when you have to come up with something from scratch, it's way harder because there's a part of your brain as a player that holds you back when you think of what a card should do. You tend to make things weaker. And so when I was talking with the developers and they were giving me some pointers, I'd like suggest something that they go, I don't know, maybe we'll try to push it in this direction. We'll keep spitballing. And I had to like start getting more aggressive and weird to the point where I'm just like, oh God, I don't want to play against this. Please just ignore these suggestions. I don't want this to go in the game. One early idea I had for Scarzig was that like it would when the transformation happened, it would immediately do combat with another unit that was on board. It would just kill something and then immediately kill a second thing, and then all copies of that thing that was still in your deck or in your hand would also get obliterated. And then if you used any spells on it and it killed it, then all copies of that spell would also get obliterated. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm just like, this is horrifying.
I would love for there to be more effects like that in Legends of Runeterra. Like in Magic the Gathering.
I love units that are just such a headache for your opponent to remove, like Towering Stonehorn.
Yeah. I love that card, but like it's just stats for the cost. More effects like units that punish being removed. There's tons of them in Magic the Gathering, but also more specifically extraction effects, like cards that say destroy a unit and all other copies of it.
Oh yeah.
Like, could you imagine? Like, I don't know. I can't imagine they would ever make a card like this that would work on champions. But can you imagine destroying Fiora and all other copies when that deck was in? Or even if it was only follower, like Chirian group, whatever they're called, Chirian buddies.
Yeah,
the Kyrian Sump Workers.
Yeah, Sump Workers.
Oh, is it Kyrian? Okay. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, those. I have. Yeah, me neither. The elusive buddies. Getting rid of all copies of them or something.
Oh yeah, that would be sweet.
All copies of Kahiri.
Oh, that's so sad.
My Elnux, no.
Oh no! Or destroy everything of a certain card type,
Oh,
like extinction
no.
effects.
I mean, that would be a ridiculous effect. Like, as you say, I would love to see something kind of along those lines, but nowhere near as powerful as that.
I mean, honestly, if they just like added a ruination that only destroyed certain creature types as like a 5-mana spell, that'd be pretty dope. Because there's so few cards with card types in LOR.
Yeah, and it just ends up being like a tech choice.
Yeah, it'd be reasonably balanced. I think it would end up seeing honestly less play than the 3-cost one that I know Gomez, you play this one a lot. What's it called?
Passage Unearned.
Yeah.
Oh, Passage Unearned, such a good card. I get so upset that it doesn't get used as much as it should do.
That's just like your Yu-Gi-Oh specialty, where you're just like, I play Passage Unearned.
It really is. No one expects it. It's like, what the fuck? People have to click on it to be like, what the fuck does this card do?
Oh god.
I love
so
that.
a minute ago you were talking about re-entering into this meta. We talked about the Sivir meta pretty extensively on the last episode, but like I would like to hear like your opinions on the state of deck building at the moment.
The meta is still pretty open in my opinion. Like we have some clear outliers, but I think just because the metagame with the whole balance patch things were so many things were like cut down to size and so many other things were buffed to the point where people are still sorting through old decks, like trying to modernize them. Like Ezreal Karma is a really great example of an old deck that's like had a new breath of life. And I think that we're going to be seeing so many new decks that are being revisited and tested that the counters are going to be very slow to come, right? Because the Shurima Ionia metagame that we're in right now is mostly like combo decks. And so if you were able to run, something a bit more aggressive, I know that Swain Twisted Fate and variants thereof have been like floating between the perception of low tier 1, high tier 2. So I think that there's still some chances for decks of that nature to kind of force a shift. And it's just that we still need to wait a little bit longer for the metagame to shift against these new decks that are coming out. I think not to shift the subject too quickly right now, I just want to say that I'm not completely disappointed that there's no balance patches, but I think that some of the more toxic elements of the Action Infinite combos could probably be hot fixed, especially before the seasonal.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely talk about that.
Yeah.
But since the last episode, which would have aired about a week ago, but was recorded a week and a half ago, the meta's actually shifted really significantly for no balance changes.
Yeah.
Because it was hugely Sivir Z when we last recorded, and now it's largely Aurelia 0 again. But that, in a weird way, that's actually opened up the meta significantly because Sivir kind of demands mid-range to be beaten. It kind of just Sivir only really loses to the mirror, or at least I have no stats to back that up. But like it seems that way. It seems as if Sivir loses to just being made vulnerable or being challenged. It loses to other mid-range is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, exactly.
So in Sivir falling to the wayside and Aurelia Azir being huge again, but people not really caring this time around for whatever reason, the meta's actually opened up significantly, which is great. I'm really enjoying the wide range of decks. I have, like you mentioned, I have been playing TF Swain, and I've been having an absolute blast. I have very positive nostalgia for that deck, and the fact that it's very viable again is really, really good.
I was playing a
Yeah, sorry, you go.
I was just gonna say I was playing a variant even before this last balance patch hit, and I've been enjoying a Gangplank Twisted Fate sort of take on it, where Gangplank just kind of gives you a bigger beater to play on curve, and Dreadway, you got to remember that Dreadway buff to 8 mana. I just treat him like Malagos, and it's hysterical.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The Dreadway buff was just so like ubiquitously ignored by everyone. Like
Yeah.
it feels as if the meta on the whole has just kind of let that buff happen, despite like all decks that run Dreadway having significantly higher win rates than the versions that don't, or at least the Gangplank decks, except for Pirate Burn, obviously. Yeah, Dreadway has like very positive effects on decks that it's in, win rate wise, but people just aren't really running it.
Well, the comedy is that only got nerfed because of the combo with Ledros. That's literally the reason why that got, buffed, sorry. That got changed because of the combo using timelines.
I was worried that change was really going to break open the game, to be honest. And I think now the meta has actually slowed down a little bit to allow that to see a bit more play, because we were under the threat of Aurelia Azir ending the game around round 6. And then you had to worry about Nasus Thresh, like with Atrocity threatening to end the game around round 7 or round 8. And now Karma Ezreal, I think, really goes to show that players are more confident that they're able to get to round 10 and pop off a little bit more.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like people don't like... Obviously, Azir Aurelia is still like a big deck right now. But I feel like people don't care as much because it is so wide open because of the other changes that got made during that balance patch. Like basically the Watchers like deck got like that. You do obviously still see a Frozen Thrall deck every now and again, but because they don't have that instant. Okay, number one, it takes them a little bit longer because they had the nice thing with Matron and Bald Space was nice when it was at 4. Now that it's at 5, it's slightly harder with Matron and that in terms of like dealing with Bald Space. So that's nicer. Watcher also isn't just an instant win con because it doesn't get rid of every single card. So that's kind of like seen a hit. Nasus Thrash obviously got like a quite hit with like different changes and whatnot. Even like had some changes previously, but even just the Abomination only being 2 health now rather than 3 health is like hit that deck quite like each of the decks that were kind of like the big boys did see some hits, and Azir Aurelia is still strong and actually probably is like stronger now. I hate that, which I literally every single time they use that recall spell on me. It's oh damn.
it is well, maybe not undoubtedly, but it is a stronger deck now than it was, but only as only because it is being answered less by the meta. I think that the previous version was stronger before it got hit with the nerfs.
Yeah,
but it is now less teched against by the meta as a whole, so the win rate is higher.
But there's so many other things available now. With that, all those patch notes, so buffing Bilgewater back up again just helped yet again so much because obviously you're seeing so much more Make It Rain now, and Make It Rain, it can be nice against that deck because most of those things have got the 1 health stat with obviously all like the blades and the sand soldiers and whatnot. So yeah, again, it actually kind of balanced itself out nicely, whereby Azir really still has got like a really good like a win percentage and whatnot, but because it's not just the 3 bad boys of Azir Aurelia, Watcher, and Thrash Nasus just being like the main things, like it's so open that I feel that people don't mind it. But obviously, there's the infinite loop, which is a thing. But other than that, I feel that everyone is kind of fine with where things are at the moment.
With Aurelia Azir, the way I've seen it is that it's already a deck that's had so much science and optimization done regarding that archetype that it's trucking right along, and everything else that's still being figured out. It's just, you know how it is, new patch hits, you can play pirate aggro or whatever else, and then you just farm everybody who's playing something that's not optimized. And Aurelia Azir is getting a lot of win rate from that. Jankie already mentioned that people aren't countering it as directly anymore. And I think that a big portion of Aurelia Azir's like win rate in the past, not only was it because of the strength of the deck overall, but because those big decks that you mentioned, Gomez, like the Watcher and Nasus Thresh in their prime, were covering a lot of the decks like matchups that it could potentially lose to. Like Discard Aggro, I think, was speculated as to be one of the best decks against Aurelia Azir. It wasn't like super consistent to the point where it was considered like a super hard counter, but with Nasus Thresh and Watcher around, where you would just lose to those decks, you couldn't run Discard Aggro as confidently or in large enough numbers to force Aurelia Azir to shift. And right now, I'm starting to hear some whispers of Fiora Shen actually coming back. And so if Fiora Shen manages to carve out a niche for itself in the metagame, then Aurelia Azir is going to have a bad time.
I've actually been having a excellent time playing Fiora Shurima, which is undoubtedly a worse deck than Fiora Shen. But the fact that I am scraping like a positive win rate with what is just a worse version of another deck is a good signaling point for me, at least, that I would agree with you that Fiora might have her time in the sun again.
And that is really unfortunate because I hate Fiora, but if she has to come back to save us from Aurelia Azir, then I have to pick my poison.
I remember in the early days of your YouTube channel, you had an entire video devoted to the Fiora problem.
Please tell me that, for banter's sake, you run the boomerang blade in that deck.
I do. I run three
of
them.
Ooh,
nice.
Yeah, no, it's actually excellent. I mean, like, not really, but it's so much worse than Judgment, but it's really fun. It's so cool. People, it feels good winning with it, and that's the metric I measure a successful deck by.
Nice. Just need to say it. Nice. So, shall we get into what has been like the latest patch notes and just the new reveals and whatnot? Because let's face it, who the hell expected the new region? Everyone.
I was so positive that everyone was wrong. I was absolutely certain that the Void was going to be the next region, but I guess I suck.
No, the Void, I mean, it's one of those things where a lot of players like that region. They like the Void champions. And, Riot was just like, well, there's not enough champions. There's not enough story going on for it to be its own region. And I don't know if there was like a bigger like meta event like the way we're seeing with like the Ruination that was centered around the Void instead. I think they probably could have made it work, and that'll just be an alternate universe where the Void was a region, because even before like Targon and stuff was coming, everybody's like, oh, the Void, the Void, the Void.
I would have bet money. Like, absolutely I would have bet money, because Rek'Sai being in Shurima makes perfect sense. That's like literally where she is. But Lulu being Ionian was just like the biggest indicator to me that there was not going to be a Bangalore City, because she is not an Ionian character. They just had to make her fit somewhere. And then the same goes for Malphite with Targon as opposed to Ixtal. The only region that left that made sense to me was the Void, and I was so positive that the things I was seeing on Twitter about it being Bangalore City were going to end up being wrong, and I was very surprised at 5 o'clock this afternoon.
I mean, I really thought it was gonna be like, I said, like, with the discussions that were going on, there's quite a few people who are talking about this. Like, it made it very convincing that it was gonna be Bandle C, which obviously it ended up being. But I initially, before all that, did think it was gonna be the Void for the pure reason of art style, because every region has got kind of its own like art style thing. Like, if you're gonna go for like steampunk and technology, you're going to PNC. If you're gonna go for like pirates and like sea themes, you're going to build. Basically, everything has got its kind of its fit of okay, this works in terms of look wise for that region and whatnot. So I really thought that it would be void because the art style of the characters and that are so different to anything else or any other region. That's why I thought it was going to be void. But obviously, it ended up being Bandle City, and it's going to be interesting to see what that's going to mean for like Timo, what you call it,
Yeah.
Heimer and Lulu in terms of like, are they just going to stay where they are for the time being, or are we going to see future like potentially when cycle happens at some point, because card games always have cycle at some point. It's still going to be a way off, I'm guessing, with this game, but does that mean eventually we're going to see them cycle out of there and cycle into Bandle City?
I think that there was some like leaked art assets, and you have to remember there was a change that was made where they moved the region symbols to be in the top right of the card, so you can see what region a card is when it's still in your hand a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And that combined with some of these other data mined assets, I think indicates that Bandle City is going to be kind of a neutral-ish, like splashy dual region focused setup, where a lot of the Yordles are probably going to be dual region with their current home regions and Bandle City. So there's going to be a lot of like interesting mixing there.
I think that's almost like inevitable because of what we have seen so far. But that what concerns me about that, or maybe not concerns, but what confuses me about that is that if we do have Bangle City characters dual regioning, there are going to be like 4 more P and Z Bangle City cards than any other region. Because
Yeah.
there's Tristana, Heimer, Ziggs, and I'm missing one, I think.
Corky
are all P and Z characters. Whereas,
yeah, for
like,
the most part.
Poppy is Demacia.
Did we say Rumble?
Rumble, true. It's like if they are dual region cards, we're leaning very heavily in the P and Z direction.
Well, that's also the thing, because it's like it means that if it's going to be one thing if the champions are dual region, but does it also mean that all the champion follower cards, like everything that goes with Teemo in terms of just like all the things that make shrooms, like Puffcat Peddler and all that,
Yeah,
are they also
I know what
dual
you mean.
region? And like that's what I mean. That's where it opens up like the question mark type thing.
And then because all of these different like Yordles have their own like deck archetypes with them, like Bandle City is going to need to give up like portions of cards to support each one. Like, is Bandle City finally what's going to make Lulu viable? Like, does she want to combine with Bandle City and a splash of Ionia, or is it still going to be Ionia Demacia or Bandle City Demacia to make Lulu happen? And so there's going to be very confusing for sure. And like throwing dual region into the mix, I know Hearthstone's been doing it recently. Magic the Gathering's been having like dual colored cards for a very long time, and it does make things a little bit harder to balance, and it's usually used very sparingly. So if my theory is correct that Bandle City is going to be heavily dual region focused, it is going to be pretty tough to figure out how those cards are supposed to land, especially because it's like if you have what's a good example? Well, I mean, yeah, Shurima Ionia, right? Like Shurima Ionia is a region combination right now that has a bunch of different decks with a lot of overlap. And so if we get a similar situation with Bandle City, then it's going to be difficult to nerf this card because of this specific deck without hitting all the other ones down the line. And I think Riot even talked about how they try to avoid splash damage like that when it comes to the balance changes.
Well, also is the fact that what they've said is that they wanted each region to have its own distinguishing. Okay, this is this region. This is this region.
Yeah.
This is this region. If Bandle City is trying to, like, as you say, put in cards that are gonna help Lulu, putting in cards that are gonna help Teemo, Heimer, and it like they're gonna be so spread out, going in so many different directions of trying to support all their champions across. Like, it's like, what identity does Bandle City have? If it's trying
They're gonna have to have a lot of like really pushed, concise cards. Like Bilgewater, I think, is a great example with Lurk and with Deep, where with just a few really well constructed focused cards, you don't have to give up too much to make a deck. But then again, the other side of that is players have already expressed that they don't like it when cards are like sort of pre-assembled into a deck and handed to the players. They still want to build decks. So these cards have already been developed for a long time, so. And with the lessons that have been learned from the Bilgewater release and the Targon release and the Shreema release, who knows how many of these cards have kind of gone back to the drawing board, just like, oh, players don't like that, or, ooh, this is actually way too strong, we got to pre-nerf that.
I like the idea of these like generalized cards that are like spread across the entirety of each region. Like whenever you support a tech card, rally or like dumb crap.
Just like completely blasphemous, like heretical mixtures of mechanics. Like, and who knows if Bandle City is going to add some sort of mechanic where there are cards that are neutral. Right? Where you can just run them in whatever deck, regardless of your region combination.
Whenever you toss me, I enter the battlefield attacking.
Oh my god! I know. Oh my god.
I mean, I really want to see what they're going to do with it, because it is actually interesting. Because as you say, dual region is something that we've not seen from.
When you see me in a prediction, I am a dragon.
That's what like...
Whenever your units are dragons, it's always day for us.
I mean, I look for there's these crazy ideas. I want them all.
I know, just word salad. Like you're reading off the card reveals and the patch notes. Everybody's like, "Are you having a stroke?"
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna end up here. That it's gonna take like so much looking at each of these cards to be like, "Is that good?" We're working out. But but yeah, which as we did mention earlier on, though, yeah, I think it's a bit interesting that during these patch notes that we didn't see a little tiny bit to try and work out the infinite loop. As you say, I'm not too fussed the fact that there is not many patch notes, like in terms of the fact that I'm not thinking that there's many things which are problematic with how vast things are, but it's more the infinite loop, knowing the fact that we've got like seasonals or whatnot coming.
Yeah.
Because there's been a lot of people complaining, saying, well, because they're timed, if somebody does an infinite loop against me, then like potentially they could take up a lot of time. I mean, admittedly, you could concede against it, but it's knowing that you're losing. Like it's a really hard thing, isn't it, knowing that somebody could bring these things?
I'd have to look at, because there's like a rule book on the Play Runeterra website. I think there's might be certain certain clauses in like the player behavior, like stipulations of being in the seasonals and like the rules of the tournament itself, where like TOs can kind of step in to make rulings regarding that. I don't think that they are going to do any sort of like this card is banned type dealio. I don't think that's ever happened. But I think that there is, and I might be misremembering, but I know that there is precedent where they just let you know, like, we know this bug exists, do not use this bug, or you will be DQ'd, that sort of thing. So if they just list it as a bug that you aren't allowed to exploit, then that might just be their way of nipping it in the bud. But
that would be so hard to write down rules wise, though.
Yeah.
Like, because it isn't really a bug. It's at what point have you discounted your cards too many times and you are now exploiting?
Yeah.
Like, if I so I don't have to be in like Shreema with like the Talia or the double countdown payoff card. What if I'm playing? Well, I played a version that used Mimic. If I mimic and I've only copied it once and it's not really infinite, it's just big. Have I exploited? Have I gone against the rules? It would be really hard to write.
Exactly. It would need to be something like you can only perform the same action X amount of times consecutively.
The same action, if you will.
Oh my god, yeah, exactly.
But I mean, yeah, it's one of those things whereby I think that people are expecting a hot fix at some point. It's just to cap the infinite loop in some way.
Yeah, and it's not just that they need to hot fix it; they need to figure out like exactly what that hot fix would do to break the combo. Where like when you bounce a card, does it lose its discount, or it's and like because the Sentinel's Horde or whatever it is that the Fount of Power that gives you that discount is like a separate ability. So like that's just a passive that's carrying over no matter what. and like making that unable to stack is like, you know, goes against the ability to duplicate the landmarks with like promising future. It's definitely a mess
I might
to put a tack on it.
I might just be super naive, but I feel as if like there's a very easy or like two pretty elegant and easy fixes. Like so the first one I would say is just remove like spells you cast everywhere. Like just reduce the cost of cards in your hand by one. Because the issue is that it reduces the cost of cards everywhere, and
Uh-huh.
in a large number of circumstances, if the card is being played in a non-degenerate way, if it just discounts the cards that are in your hand already and the two cards that you draw, doesn't that just fix the problem and the card can only be used in a more fair way?
Yeah, you would have to spend a lot more time gathering up like 2 Navori conspirators to do like the really degenerate, just I'm going to sit here and bounce these back and forth infinitely type stuff.
Well, I think is this just Hearthstone or MTG or whatever? But when you bounce something back to your hand, it regains its original mana point, doesn't it?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's what normally happens in the game, but because Fount of Power
yeah,
specifically like
yeah.
is a blanket discount that exists outside of that interaction, like it still retains a 0 cost, and that's really what's going on. And this combo, like it's the other factor is we're talking about just the infinite stalling, delaying deck. And that's like the issue. But the other side of the coin is that if the deck actually does kill you, if you're running like the Zillion version where you do the discounts and like you're shuffling and drawing tons of time bombs to slowly burn your opponent down, that interaction of your opponent having to constantly click pass over and over again every time you make a slow action, it still takes like several minutes for the combo to kill the opponent. And I'm wondering that for the purposes of the seasonal tournament, if that's just not practical.
Yeah, no, totally. Uh, I, I don't see why they don't just make it work the same way as, and I forget the name of the card, the Navori 2 cost, or really any cost reduction in the game, really. Black Market Merchant, for example.
Yeah.
What is the 2 cost in Ionia? It recently got buffed.
Oh, you mean Greenglade Lookout?
Yeah, Green Glade Lookout. If it just reduced the cost of cards in your hand blanketed by 1, not until the end of turn, just like
Yeah,
if
exactly.
you draw and then reduced everything by 1, that you would be forced to use that node fairly.
Yep.
And
I think that's a pretty elegant change.
and maybe the less elegant change, but would still like solve the problem in some circumstances would be instead of you clicking which of the 3 options you wanted and then it adding a spell to your hand, if it just happened immediately, so it wasn't karma-able or mimicable, etc., etc. But I that doesn't help with Talia or with the countdown doubler, which is
And
the
they
big
might
problem
be,
right
they're
now.
probably on that same like track, that same idea of how to make the change, but this patch is just so poorly timed when it comes to the big riot, like company-wide break that's about to
Yeah.
happen, the seasonal tournament right around the corner, and just the fact that the way these patch notes are locked in on certain cycle, and that they need to predict what the meta is going to be like 2 or 3 weeks out. And we already talked about how the meta has already shifted very wildly over the course of just a little over 1 week. So
Mhm.
they really can't do much. And so hopefully they can squeeze in that hot fix.
I just
Yeah.
want to see somebody bring a bunch of infinite loop ones where they're just like they've got a bunch of action decks where they're doing that, and just somebody's just brought a bunch of decks which are all landmark removal decks,
Mm.
and just where none of that. Good days.
I've seen people who are like tweeting as like an act of protest they're gonna bring 3 loop stacks, and it's like, come on, don't. That's not an act of protest. You're just being a dick.
Pretty much. The one thing I will say is, like, as we talked about this before with the fact, like, say, like, Swim and people like that, like, by them putting it out there, it's giving it to the people to know this is a thing. But as I said before, it is actually important what he's kind of done in letting people know, because then it lets Riot know. Because as I said last time, imagine if the first time you saw this deck was actually in a seasonal tournament whereby no one expected it, and this was what happened. Just
Oh
immediately.
yeah, that
Like,
is
just
true.
unexpected out of nowhere, just this infinite loop deck, which, as like I said, if nobody knew this was a thing going into seasonals and somebody had brought this, just knowing that would take down the timer and everything and just win match, like just imagine.
We would get like a rules edit the day of, because the deck came from the Asian server, right?
Yes,
it was either
it did, yeah.
the C region, and so that would have happened like for NA purposes. It would have happened like in the morning, like early in the morning. It would have been like, oh no.
Go quickly hotfix this. Like, quickly put tight the rules. Stop them.
I know. Has NA submitted their deck list yet? We can't let somebody do a last minute change.
No, I can't be the only one that saw the 3 rewards that you got from the landmark and thought to myself, one of these things is wildly not like the others.
Mate, I will admit, now looking at you, you think, yeah, the cost reduction is like there's so many different things I could do with it. But okay, my mind firstly went to the fact that, because you need to remember, Buddy Boo, when this came out, we had just seen the buff to Howling Abyss. So my mind instantly went to the +2 and spell shield to all champions everywhere. Okay, that's the reward that I was like, yep, doing that with Howling Abyss. That's a thing. That's where my mind went. Okay.
My mind immediately went to Mimic, which is why I ended up uploading that thing to Twitter. Pretty much the day of.
But that was spicy. I loved it.
I didn't realize. Thanks. I didn't realize how bad the issue was, though. When I was doing that, I thought it was like pretty degenerate, but kind of cool. I didn't realize. It didn't click with me how actually easy it would be to pull off if instead of Mimic, you did it with the landmark doubler, the promised future.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's unfortunate to say the least.
It's crazy, but I'm sure that Riot will do something about it. Like, they're quite good at like listening to the player base. It might take them a little bit, but they are good at listening. So let's get into also what's been like announced of what the new labs and the way that they're moving forward, kind of with Lab of Legends with the PvE.
This looks so sick. Oh my god.
Having that RPG progression and like them fleshing out even more, using labs as a way to tell additional stories, like around having to take down Gangplank, is just amazing. I know that I was definitely a latecomer to labs, and it's super fun being able to do like completely busted things and not having to feel bad because you're doing it to an AI is just brilliant.
I mean, sometimes I feel bad for Victor. Victor never knows what's coming his way, and Victor just gets destroyed. I feel bad for him sometimes. Okay,
I feel bad for Sejuani. Sejuani keeps on like the Sejuani deck. It loses before it drops Sejuani.
No, for me, it's always Victor. Just like he instantly gets killed. Like, you know, sometimes he drops down, he immediately dies, and then he's dead. Like, oh, soon. It's like metal is perfection. Yeah, of course it is, mate. You move him to one side and just destroy him.
Yeah. Have either of you played Final Fantasy X? No.
Yeah.
You know the sphere grid? And it gives me very strong vibes of that, and I love that.
Yeah, the ability to like customize your journey a little bit, and depending on how good people get at reading the map or like reading the nodes, how far in the future you can look to like plan out your path. You got like that Slay the Spire element to it as well.
Oh yeah, for real. Yeah, I've never played Slay the Spire, but like I see what you mean. I've been interested in trying it out.
I mean, if you like Lab of Legends, you'll probably really enjoy that game as well.
I mean, it's Lab of Legends. They've done a fantastic job on that, and so yeah, no, I honestly cannot wait. Just looking at the map, it just all looks so interesting. The fact that you can get gold and make trades and go to the shop and whatnot.
I know, and then they said that you're going to unlock new powers and stuff, so that allows them to experiment with like other passives and stuff and things like that for maybe even future expansions. You know what I mean? Where if they have some sort of start of game type ability that like procs when your deck is built a certain way, the way that I think like Allegiance sort of happens now. It's an additional testing ground, I think, for like some interesting things that they could do in the future too.
One thing that gets me, I like that they're trying to push it in a more story-driven direction, where it's like you're going to go and defeat Gangplank.
Yeah,
but like it's super like I have to suspend my disbelief a bit that like after I defeat the Profiteer, Renekton becomes my best friend in Bilgewater. And like, Ash, what are you doing here? No way! You can come with me to defeat Gangplank, right? Defeat who?
I know it's just fan fiction. You gotta come up with some contrivance, and that's the best part, right? Is when you're like playing these silly decks, even like in regular Runeterra, there's some like alternate reality or story about how these champions might have ended up on the same side of a conflict.
Shurima is sand and sky, past, and I don't like Gangplank for some reason.
He made fun of my cape.
He called me a bird brain.
But honestly, it's one of those modes that I can already see. I'm just gonna love just making my way through time and time again, just like Lab of Legends as it is now, and it allows for so many different like ways they can experiment with that. Because I said like they have said that they're gonna expand the story and make it bigger, and obviously we're gonna get a major expansion in November with it as well, because it said like major PvE expansion, so I can assume that we're going to see a lot more going on in that sphere.
All right, so the moment's a little bit past, but I got to get this one off my chest.
Go for it.
Azir ordered a shipment of rare fruit from the far-off land of Bilgawate. It was stolen by Gangplank, so they have to go get the royal oranges. What is this strange land, Bilgawate? And nobody's going to correct Azir if he says Bilgewater wrong. Everybody's going to be like, yes, my liege, we'll get the oranges.
The oranges. Oh no. And like Talia is just making fun of him like, it's Bilgewater, you idiot.
And he's like, silence, peasant. Tell the people.
Oh no. Oh, I love it. So the other thing that got announced today is the roadmap for the remainder of the year. I was surprised to hear they kind of just like slipped this into the video in like a 2-second like flurry of words. There is going to be 4 parts to the Bangle City expansion.
Yeah, it's the timing is going to be a little bit off, right? Because it's like a 2-3-1 or something like that. It ends up getting chopped up into.
Yeah, I think.
I guess it makes sense because, Bandle City is going to have way more cards like being released all at once to catch up. So, and I think Riot already mentioned how, Region 10 is more designed around being chopped up than the other regions were. So we're going to be getting more complete and fleshed out archetypes. That's going to be great, being able to play with a full deck and not having, 1/4 of Bandle City and going, man, I sure can't wait for the rest of this, Corki support to come out.
That actually scares me though, because like I unpopular opinion, I really like the way that they like release archetypes in pieces. I don't enjoy it when they just dump an entire archetype on us. Like that you mentioned that people had a problem with like Pike Rek'Sai, and to a lesser extent, I really didn't like Tom Soraka.
Yeah,
I liked it more when we got teased like dragons bit by bit, and then they dropped Shyvana, and it was like, yes, let's go.
That's a really good way to do it. I think that a lot of that salt comes from they don't necessarily mind that the archetype is incomplete. It's just that when an expansion drops in and it doesn't shift the meta, then it just feels worse. So if they do like a really strong balance update like we just got, right, alongside the first set of Bandle City, so that even an incomplete archetype can still kind of carve out a tier 2 niche for itself, I think that the player base would be a lot more appeased, because it's not really about this archetype is weak. It's more about being let down. The meta didn't shift.
Yeah, it's like a lot of it comes down to the order they release the cards as well. Like if before the dragon archetype has all of its cards available, they release a card like New Cadragrin, which is give a dragon challenger. It's like, well, what am I meant to do with this? But
Yeah.
if they release the more generalized cards like Shrieking Dragon, is that what it's called? The 5 cost?
Screeching Dragon.
Screeching Dragon, yeah. If they release cards like that first, cards that are just generally good and also incidentally work in dragons, and like take that same principle but shift it onto Bilgewater. If they're planning a new, I don't know, a fairy, I don't know what's in Bandle City. If they're planning a new, I'm sticking with it. If they're planning a new fairy deck and they release the more generalized, powerful fairies, like just a well-statted unit that cycles when it enters before fairy synergy cards, then I don't think it necessarily matters that they're not releasing full archetypes.
Yeah, because for Bandle City, we only got like a little bit of tease of some locations and like the general style, and then some like tasty Fey folk looking creatures. So
yeah,
I think that they're going to be, because right now we've got like tasty Fey folk, fuzzy caretaker, like the Lulu stuff, right? That, and I think that that's going to be a lot of like Bandle City's kind of design when it comes to region. It's just going to be happy-go-lucky forest entities and spirits like that.
Well, if looking at the 2021 roadmap, the headers, like where they've written the dates in, like they did last time with Shurima, like shows us some of the card art, and it is haunting. I hate it. It's actually terrifying. Look at September.
I like the look of the October one with the bear with glasses with what looks like some kind of like the purple thing in the background. So I can assume that's something to do with like a Lulu support card or something.
It looks like Teemo in Commando gear.
Oh,
that's a buff Teemo. if that's Teemo, that's buff.
Yeah,
Teemo.
and this is going to be like more examples of like Yordles that aren't champions, because we have a handful of Yordles in the game already, like Petty Officer and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a new way for them to expand on Bandle City as a whole.
I mean, September to me just looks like it is something that, as you say, could be potentially. I don't know where like the moustache and monocle look amazing, but my mind seems to be telling me this is looking kind of Bilgewater grifter style.
Yeah,
it looks directly out of my nightmares. Yeah. That is the kind of face that like you see it out of the darkness and like you know your time has come.
I know, right? Like the teeth, they're just.
He'd be my best friend.
Something I've so I believe this is correct. Canonically, Yordles use something called glimmer to make it so that people perceive them as being human.
Yeah,
so,
glamour.
Glamour.
Yeah.
What do these guys look like? Like what does the September dude or the October dude look like? Just
that's what I mean, right? Like it was like in a message that like pops up in the loading screen for League of Legends or something, where like it first came up that Yordles use a glamour to like project a cute and fuzzy appearance or whatever, and very few people can perceive, or no one at all can perceive their real form. And that just ties back to my grandmaster theory that Bandle City is the void.
They just put glamour over it to make it look
they're gross eldritch monsters, and they just use the illusion magic to just be like, I am cute and fuzzy, and that's why everybody hates Teemo. They can sense.
Are you saying it's the D&D mimic of regions?
I'm trying to say that buff Teemo is going to rip off its skin and it will be Cho'Gath.
And they'll hint at it. There will be like a unit that you play, and it'll have some kind of like monstrous like voice, and then it'll like cough and clear its throat, and then be all cute and snuggly.
So let's just work out, like, who are we expecting to be some new champions we're going to see? We know for a fact we're going to be getting Senna as a champion in the next expansion.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Good point.
We know that for a fact because, obviously, the end of the roadmap of the reward thing does say you'll get one copy of Senna the champion with the next expansion.
That was crazy cool. I really
forgot about that. Yeah, it was like there was so much stuff going on. We like said, "Oh, this is cool." Okay, and then just forgot about it. But yeah, Senna, what's it called? Senna the Redeemer?
Something like that. The question is going to be, what the hell is Senna? Is Senna going to be like, is it only going to be like Senna and Lucian decks in the fact that will Lucian's card text be updated to say if he sees the follower Senna die or the champion Senna die,
Oh, that'd be
that,
OP.
that he
Yeah.
levels up? And then,
I highly presume, because the 3-cost Senna follower is not particularly iconic or interesting. I'm gonna assume they're just gonna remove it and replace it with a 3-cost champion.
you say that, but will they remove
I wonder,
it?
and that's the thing is I don't know if they would do that, because in Runeterra, like, these cards all exist in different moments in time, the way we have like several Cythrias that are
Four
across like her
Cythrias.
whole
true.
career.
That's
So
what
I think that they could have both, and then Senna in her champion status, like after she comes out of the Lantern, could maybe be Shadow Isles.
Yeah, that's a really good point with the multiple Cythrias, and that would also mean that they could have a Yone that is pre and post demonization.
Yeah,
he's-
yeah.
he's-
So
he
Yone
look-
being added as a champion would be great.
He looks so different in his past.
Yeah, very, very different, yeah.
But no, I said, like, if we're gonna get both of them, does that just literally mean we could play a deck where we're playing like a Lucian and both his wives? My wives have shown up.
The new voice lines around that would just be hilarious, where you play Senna the Redeemer and then Lucian just goes like, "It's not what it looks like."
Wait a minute. I thought you were my wife. Wait, you my wife? You my wife? Where's my wife?
Go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, if Thresh is in play, he might have some sort of like really just creepy line, like, "Haha, Lucian, you're caught in the ultimate trap," or something like.
This was my plan all along.
I know, right?
I mean, but also, what is she gonna do in terms of, is she gonna be like, if Lucian dies, she levels up? With
Yeah,
something else
that
as
could.
well?
She might have some sort of text like that. I know in League of Legends, she has this like gimmick of she collects these souls, this kind of the same way Thresh does, of like things that die near her to like get stronger. So I wonder if she will have a little bit of that like DNA,
she
or
might-
maybe
So she
like
can have
you
a slay
remember.
mechanic. Is that what you're trying to say? Is she gonna
Yeah,
have
like a slay mechanic, or you remember how Thresh used to operate in the beta before they reworked him? How every time something would die, he would heal? And maybe, like, by reworking Thresh to his current form, they can take that idea and carry it into the future for Senna, because I know that a lot of players, myself included, actually really liked the way Thresh used to play in the beta.
Oh yeah, I loved it. I thought it made radically more sense than the current version.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't wait to see what they're gonna do.
As long as we get
hope
Poppy for Bandle
yeah.
City, please. If it please, first release of Bandle City, give me Poppy, Riot, please.
Releasing Bandle City without Poppy is insane. That's like releasing Ionia without Ari or Akali. They just wouldn't do it.
They put Targon in without Pantheon, and at this point, I just don't know anymore. I was 100,000% convinced that we were going to get Pantheon in the Targon release.
I can't wait to see Pantheon as a card, because he
Oh
is
my
just
God.
so cool.
He's so cool.
Yeah, like the he need. I love his voice lines. I just want to hear him speak more.
Right.
But the so I guess that brings us neatly onto like what champions do we want to see the most coming out of this next set, and they don't have to be Bandle City.
Yeah, they don't even need to be Yordles, but now it just opens up so many things. Actually, I think that we have a really strong chance of maybe seeing Yorick Mori, because he's a big part of like the narrative around the Shadow Isles. And because he's like kind of missing from the current story that's being developed right now around the Sentinels versus Viego, one of the writers had, I think, responded to either a tweet or a Reddit thread, basically saying, "Don't worry, we haven't forgotten about Yorick." And then there's the new Yordle Vex that's also tied to the big Ruination event. That would be an excellent way to transition from this big Shadow Isles event to Bandle City, so we could see Vex as well.
I love like powerful like what's the value engines that like feed off of the board and become stronger the more they are unanswered. Much like what what's his name, Viego is doing.
Yeah, yeah.
I like the idea of Yorick raising his ghouls whenever a certain number of units die. Like every third unit that dies, he fills up your board with ghouls. Like kind of like he does in League. Yeah,
and then when he levels up, you get the Maiden of the Mist. Oh.
Yeah, that would be dope. That would be really, really dope. And Maiden makes all of your ghouls stronger.
Oh yeah, see, like it's so easy, right? This stuff writes itself. Come on,
it's free.
Yeah, no, free.
The only one that I want is because I don't really play any League of Legends, so characters are like a thing that I don't know 100%. But I want to see, just because he always looked amazingly funny to me, is either Fiddlesticks or Shaco. I believe.
Okay.
Cloudman. I would like to see Cloudman.
When was the last time you saw Fiddlesticks? Do you know old Fiddlesticks or new Fiddlesticks?
No, I mean, I don't know. I just know what he looks like and what he kind of does. I don't actually know that much about him.
Fiddlesticks recently got a rework that turned him into this like horrific creature.
Like, it's the best. He's like terrorizing the Demacian countryside.
Remind me to send you a video later. I'll send you his trailer. It is.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good.
I think it's the trailer that I saw of him.
Yeah.
He's just like a Slender Man, like gross cryptid being, and that would be a really cool addition to the game.
I want that, but I also do want Shaco, because I would love the idea of Shaco, because this whole thing is like basically making like a mimic like version of himself, like kind of thing. I don't know why, because the thing is they'll have to change how the battle thing works, because obviously things always spawn like, you know, to the right of like, so say you're playing Zed, it spawns to the right. What I'd want is that like you play Shaco forward, and then it spawns a random one either to the right or left of him. And you don't know
God, you get a magical hats? Not like this.
Exactly, and you don't know which one's the real.
Summon an exact copy of me with ephemeral.
Yeah, and it would just be like
me or something.
Yeah, just like an ephemeral burst speed spell or something.
No, but I like the idea of which it like so it forces the opponent to have to like work out whether or not it's worth. Basically, I want that to be like your opponent can't tell which is which.
And if they're wrong, you get the boxes.
And exactly, if they hit the wrong one, it does 2 damage to everything on their side of the field.
Jack in the Box, yeah, that is so cool.
That's what I mean.
That also opens up more trap style cards. Like the Teemo mushrooms are technically their own card type, right? So if you shuffle boxes into your opponent's deck, and then
I really want to see more trap type cards. That's
and then it's
such
like
a good idea.
When I'm drawn, like summon an ephemeral Shaco or something, you just get like a bonus clown for that turn.
Do you remember there was a card in Hearthstone that I can't remember what the hell it was called? Like it was like some kind of curse or something like that, where basically it was put this card into your opponent's hand. At the start of round, it does 2 damage to them unless they get rid of it. So it forced your opponent to have to spend mana that turn. So it was going into their next turn. They had to spend mana to get rid of it, so they don't have to continuously take 2 damage. But it's obviously forced them to spend that mana that round. So you kind of can use it if you notice a turn.
I can't remember the name of the card either, but I know what you're talking about.
Curse of Rafam?
Yeah!
Curse of Rafam. I would love a card like that, because it forces your opponent to have to, like, say that they were going to do the move, like, okay, right, they're going to throw down Sivir this turn. You do that on the turn just before it, so it's kind of like, they could throw Sivir down, they've got the mana to throw Sivir down, but it does mean they're going to take an additional 2 damage if they do it, because they've not got the mana to get rid of this card, and, like, you know what I mean?
That would be diabolical.
Where it forces your opponent, but you know they're going to do a move, that you're like, I don't want this. This card, that kind of card is a card that I would enjoy. Loads of people would hate it, but I would love it. And we do have to start wrapping things up because I've got to head off.
Yeah.
I do apologise. I wish I could stay longer, but sadly I've got to wrap up.
Would you like to close up the episode?
I mean, if everything's all good, then thank you so much, obviously, to our guest Scarzig. We will, we can catch you obviously on Twitch, and I believe you do a little bit of YouTube. We'll put the link.
I'm getting the wheels spinning back up on YouTube. So if you want to stop by and subscribe, it'd really help me out, get the plate off the ground.
Exactly, help our boy out. And obviously, I said you can hit him up on Twitch as well. You can hit me and Jankie both up on Twitch and YouTube as well. Links all down below, as well as just thank you so much for listening with your ear holes. You can catch us on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify. So Like all different places that you can possibly want to throw those ear holes into, you can do. And thank you just so much. Yes, it's been a great time.
I have one more thing I would like to plug. By the time this goes live, I will have uploaded something to YouTube I would really like for you guys to check out. I have been editing it for the greater portion of 4 days straight now, and if it flops, I will just go and cry. So please do check out my YouTube channel now.
Indeed,
once this is live.
Dedication. I'll make sure to
I mean, I
you know,
want to
watch
see what
that
the
as
hell
well.
it is. Because you've been like spoilering this on Twitter, saying that it's taking you this long. I want to see what the hell it is, buddy. Like, so I cannot wait to see that. So yeah, make sure you check out Jankie's video. Yeah, again, most likely would there be links and whatnot. But just thank you so much. I hope you have a great evening, day, afternoon, or whatever the hell it is for you. And just said thank you to us, to our guest Scarzig. Thank you to Jankie. Thank you to me, I guess. And goodbye.
Goodbye.